We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the Friday Farcast. I'm your host, Robert Phoenix, and it is the 23rd of December, and we are on the precipice of Christmas. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and we just came through the longest night of the year. I hope everybody had a sacred and silent night, and alone with your thoughts and your prayers and your meditation and your candles and people that you love or people that you love inside of you, however that manifests and unfolded in your life last night. I hope it was a fine event, and if it wasn't, well, you get another crack at it today. We are in a very interesting time. Astrologically, we've got the sun right now, fresh 0 degrees Capricorn, and new moon coming at us tomorrow in Capricorn as well. And if you listen to the astrological show, Navigating the Astrological Matrix, on Wednesday, you would have heard me talk about this other version of the Mayan calendar, which was bandied about by Rod Serling on an old version of In Search Of. So that supposedly is taking place tomorrow with a partial solar eclipse, which I can find very little information about. We had an earthquake down in New Zealand yesterday. It was a 5.8, but it was actually quite shallow. It was less than 10 kilometers. And usually when they're less than 10 kilometers, there's a very good chance that they are perhaps not naturally occurring earthquakes. And when we talk about non-naturally occurring earthquakes, of course, we begin to discuss HAARP. So we are in an earthquake cycle, it seems to be. And tomorrow, as I noted on the show on Wednesday, it is 5 Kaban. Kaban being the Mayan signature known as earthquake. Earthquake. The Mayan signature known as earthquake. So, and 5 is all about synchronicity and empowerment and all kinds of other good stuff. So that's tomorrow. And we've got the Capricorn new moon, Capricorn sun. A time for fresh beginnings. If you want to set your personal clock for the year ahead, don't wait until the 31st of December. Tomorrow is really the day with the new moon and the fresh degree of the Capricorn sun. Set your intention. What do you want for 2012 in terms of your own personal gratification, your own personal manifestation, your strategy for the world? We're in a pretty sacred space here for the next 2 to 3 days. It's really starting on, I believe, the 21st, and really leading all the way up through till till Sunday. So make good use of the time and be mindful. Be as mindful as you can. Today, I am going to be graced with the mindful presence of Less Visible. He should be calling in here in a minute or so. And if you're not aware of him, you need to be. He's one of the most prolific bloggers on the internet. He's got a number of different websites. He's got Visible Origami, Smoky Mirrors. He goes by the name of the Dog Poet. Perhaps it's because he was born in the year of the dog. We'll ask him about that when he comes on. He's a prolific writer. He's got a number of books coming out this year. He's a musician, and he is a truth teller. And that's one of the reasons why I have him on, or I'm going to have him on the show. You may be, he may have some opinions that you may not agree with. That's okay. You know, we're all adults here. Or he may have opinions that you will stand up in your chair and applaud furiously towards. But we're going to find out as soon as he dials in and calls in on the show. A little bit of housekeeping business here. Next week, no shows. I will be off and taking it easy for a week, going on a little vacation Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll be back at it the following week. So really, this is the last. I may have a show on Friday. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to have a show on Friday. There's some medical stuff associated with my family that I'm going to have to tend to. So I may not. I probably won't be on the show on Friday. Let's just put it that way. We got our friend here. Hold on a second. What's happening? Hold on. So Les is calling in on Skype. Les, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello.
We're here. You there?
Oh, we are.
Yes.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody's departed a long time ago, but...
Nah, the chat room is full, man. Here we go.
Okay.
All right, we're on. Thank God.
Yeah, well, we didn't lose our temper, and that's good. And I finally got signed into Skype with Facebook here just this moment, so...
Okay.
I don't know what good that does now. It was really... that's when I see these kind of things happening. I know that there are other forces at work, so I just figure the only thing that's happening is to see if I'm going to go off. And if I don't go off, then it's a stalemate.
So here's what we did. I think, okay, let's break this down since we're in real time now, okay?
Okay.
All right, so I had to deal with it my own way and have a sense of mindfulness, right?
Right.
And patience. You had to deal with it in your own way and have a sense of mindfulness and patience. And then we had the people in the chat room dealing with it in their own way. So we were all like hanging in there together. And so what can we derive from this? What do you think the 40,000-foot lesson here is?
Well, mindfulness.
Yeah.
And patience.
Patience.
I mean, you know, that's just how the world works, man. I run into it every single day on one level or another like this. And I have learned, finally at this stage of my life, to recognize that instead of to react. That's the one thing that I try to keep uppermost in my mind and that I try to share with other people is the reactive mind is your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
If you can control the reactive mind, there's very little limit to what you can't accomplish.
You know, one of the things also I want to bring up is, you know, I've got a really great audience, and I bet, you know, a lot of the folks that are into your writing and your world and your thoughts are as well. And you know, I was checking in with my chat room, and the people in the chat room were really kind of holding the space for this to happen, right? So,
yeah.
You know, and we can't discount that either. That, you know, while we may be going through our gyrations, that the people in the chat room or whoever they are still holding space for the rest of us to kind of get it together. And there's kind of a big picture piece there as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the state of the world at this time, too, you know, communication in relation to confusion and the parameters and percentages of each leave us in a state, well, you see it in the street everywhere that you go. You see the level of frustration that is operative in people who just don't understand what's happening to them why it's happening, why they're so unhappy with so much. Because when they didn't have nearly as much, they were much better off. And that just doesn't seem to, there's a cognitive dissonance there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's settle into this for a minute. We now have an hour and 10 minutes left to kind of explore some of the topics you and I kicked around. What I'm really interested in is I'm interested in your path and how you, and I know it's a long and winding road, and you and I share a fetish for avocados, by the way. I have an avocado.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much. But I'd really love to try to, have people, for my own sake as well, and for some of the people that are listening, to get a sense as to how you got to where you are today in Switzerland, number one. And number
I'm not in Switzerland. I'm in Germany.
In Germany. Okay, in Germany.
I'm just near. The landmark I give is in Switzerland.
Okay, so how did you get to where you are physically and metaphysically? I mean, that's really the 40,000-foot question. And I know it's a long, long, winding road, but you've evolved to a place where, you're sharing your heart, your soul, your thoughts at a very evolved level with a lot of folks on a daily basis. And I'm curious as to, how you got there. I mean, it's really...
Well, it's pretty simple. First of all, from what I can tell, it was destined. So it isn't like, part of it's me, but part of it was I've had a tremendous amount of help along the way. When I was about 6 months, between 6 months and a year old, I was laying in my bed in Japan. We had a house in Kyoto, and I heard this noise in the room, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And finally, I looked up to the rafters, and there were all these Buddhist monks on the rafters chanting. And I never forgot that, and I think this was after I'd first taken LSD a few times when I first remembered that it had happened. I never did remember for the rest of my life up to that point that it had happened. So I think I had some kind of, my invisible friends were already operative. The other thing is I've had a very, very difficult progress. I mean, what with prisons and mental institutions and a brutal childhood and a lot of difficulty in life not working out for me materially because I wouldn't compromise. And so I would take just whatever job I could get in order just to survive. And that would be all kinds of things in the food industry, construction, different things like that. Club bouncer, I don't know, sometimes I performed, different things like that. But I never made very much money at anything. But the thing that kept me going, and that has always kept me going, and that has allowed me to be where I am now, is my faith in God. Mm-hmm. I have absolute, unshakable conviction of the existence of God, and I talk to God. God talks to me. Now, people can take that any way they want to, but since I have it happen on every single day, I no longer doubt it whatsoever, and it really doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is my relationship with it, and if it proves out. And a lot of the time now I know things. When I met the lady that I'm living here with now in a most unusual relationship, which is basically friendship-based, and which is an amazing thing in and of itself, I was in Maui, Hawaii, and I was performing in some clubs, and I started announcing on stage that I was going to go to Europe, probably Germany, to perform my music because I saw George Bush coming, and I said, nope. I went as far in the U.S. as I could go to Hawaii to get away after Ronald Reagan. And now this guy Bush is coming, and there's not going to be anywhere that's safe to go anymore. I could just tell. So I started saying I was going to Europe. And it was about 2 months before this event happened, maybe 3. And one day I was unloading my equipment into this place in Kihei where I was going to play. And I looked up the street, and I saw this woman walking down the street from about 200 or 300 meters away on the opposite side of the road. And I said, gee, I hope she comes in here. And right at that very moment, she crossed the street. And she walked right down the street to the club I was in and walked right in and sat down and sat there through my show. And I was very interested in her, and I went to talk to her afterwards and saw she was from another country. And I asked her if she would like to come to my next show, and she said, oh, yeah, absolutely. And she got the details and everything. And then I went to the next gig, and she didn't show up. And I thought, well, you know how that goes.
Right.
And but then I went back to the other gig where I met her the first time, and she was there again. She said she just couldn't find the other place. And from there, it was just dramatic. And her mother told her to marry me. And her mother never liked a single man she ever met before. And the next thing I knew, I was on my way to Germany, and my friend Marie, I remember, came up to me, who worked in this club where I would play, and she said, "How did you know? How did you know you were going to do this?" She said, "You couldn't have." I said, "I didn't, but I did." And it's been like that for me, and mostly because I communicate with God inside, and He's there. He's real. She's real.
Right.
You call it what you like, and that's my daily conversation every day, all day long. That's how it is for me, and it's what I strive for. It's what I aspire to. It's what I put every minute of my life into.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything else. And so that's just kind of the way it's been, and it's not been easy even in recent times, because you're an astrologer, my chart. There's forces that come down on me here, just so powerful and strong. Sometimes it just feels like you're going to be crushed to dust under them. And but it's just every night I lay down, and the moment I lay down in bed, God's there, and we talk, and I tell Him what I want, the same thing every night, and then I just want to say I love you over and over and over till I fall asleep, and then when I wake up in the morning, sometimes that's what I'm saying right then. And it's after I get up, I have these blissful idyllic periods at night and in the morning, but after I get up, then, I start to integrate into this world again for a little bit. I have to catch myself all day long, I swear, and remind myself, and God's always there, and He goes, "Well, see, here you are again, and, I was right here all the time. I haven't gone anywhere. No, I told you I'm here all the time now." And He did tell me that in Italy last year. It had been very intermittent before that, and, sometimes then it would be weeks would go by, and, without any real contact. But now it's all the time. So I think I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I never minded the risk. I didn't have any concern for my life or my well-being or anything, and I pursued God relentlessly, and I think God pursued me the same way, and so it's just kind of worked out for me. In that sense, I'm not any better, I don't think, than anyone else in any other way. I just I want this more.
Right. Well, it's interesting. You're the dog poet, and you're born in the year of the dog, and that's a very dog-like kind of persistence. Patience, showing up every day, and loyalty, and and
dog
I think,
loyalty, yeah,
absolutely. And I think when we talk about the quality of a relationship, whether it's a relationship with a lover or the divine or both, when they're intermingled, whatever that is, loyalty and consistency is always the key, and eventually that relationship will bear fruit as a result of that. So, good on you for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, let's jump into the current milieu of the planet as we sit here today across the world from one another. The lessons that you've learned in your life: persistence, patience, loyalty, commitment, compassion. Winding through the labyrinth of your experience, the crooked roads of genius, as William Blake would say. Where are we now, Les, in the big picture, the human species, the great?
Human species. I am not, I don't think, qualified to answer that. I could probably have some observations. I'd say we're at critical mass. We're in a any moment mode right now. Iran could go off, something else could go off. We saw with Fukushima. We've seen this emergent revolution happening in countries all around the world, where the people I just can't take anymore. They've been beaten down, stolen from, and of course the pincer movement that's occurring because of the elite after the middle class. You see, that's always where their big problem happens. As long as they're just oppressing the poor, it's not that big a deal, except to the poor. And but once they go after the middle class is the only thing that protects them from revolution.
Right.
And when they start to crush the middle class, which they're doing now, and all that ridiculous TSA stuff and all the rest of it, these fascists are up to, then it's going to get combustible. And as you know, in astrology, there are certain planetary aspects coming into play now that are going to set up, certain conditions, which we can't accurately predict exactly what they'll be, but we know that they provide a combustible environment with who knows what may come. I'm optimistic. I don't have a doom and gloom thing at all. I look forward into things where I have to go in coming times and stuff, and I don't feel any apprehension or discomfort, and I don't feel like it's going to blow up all around me any moment, although I expect parts of it will. Yeah. But I think that, every single person on this planet is exactly where they're supposed to be according to their level of development and to the relationship that they have with their Creator. And precisely and exactly where they're meant to be. And they can accelerate that, they can move that, they can transform that, and people are doing that now at this time. And things are going to hit where they're going to hit, where people have congregated around certain modalities and certain attractions. And, like, for instance, I wouldn't want to be in Las Vegas, and a couple of other places I guarantee I wouldn't want to be because of the nature of the collective drive of the people. Hong Kong would be another. Certainly New York City. Not that I, had a lot of fun in New York City, but the thing is, I think cities would be the biggest problem at this time because of all the different things that can begin to happen in them, once it starts to go off.
Right.
And I think if anybody has it together, man, they go find somewhere that, is kind of far out, and sit it out because it is going to come down. There's no question that it'll come down because, they're so resistant at the top.
Right.
And it's this rock and a hard place thing, and you've got to move. When the Lord gets ready, you've got to move, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I love about your writing and your work is that you are unflinching when it comes to staring the quote unquote beast square in the eye, and at the same time you have a real voice of optimism, and I can see that people really resonate with that. And I wouldn't even call it hope. I'm not a big hope guy. Hope is really shaky. You've got something that you're transmitting and sharing with people that I think is very relevant. And and for me in my own writing and work, I'm moving towards a similar vector, and I just have to feel, Les, that we're not alone in this. And
no, we're not.
Millions of other people that are turning corners in spite of what we see around the world in ways that are quite alarming. And I think that this is perhaps our greatest gift that we can give to these times is to have a sense of faith and magic, and from a place that's completely, in some ways, it would be deemed foolish. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Well, people that don't have a lot of faith and people that have difficulty having belief and being strong and all those kind of things are not paying enough attention to the scriptures that they profess to believe in. Because the thing is outlined very clearly. Like you say, I'm kind of unflinching with these people. Well, I'm not afraid of them. There's nothing they can do to me. They don't have any power. Only God has power, period. Any other illusion of power with the devil or the elite or anyone else, they can do only as much as God allows them to do, and not one whit more. So anything that would or would not happen to me would be ordained by God and allowed by God, and that's something I will accept and embrace. But God is a benevolent God and a very good God, and it doesn't necessarily need to, crunch us and toss us out just to make an example of how great our sacrifice is. And it says very clearly in the Bible, if God is for me, who can be against me? And it also says, greater is that which is in you than that which is in the world. And that means, with the deity resident in you, there's nothing more powerful. Nothing. There is nothing on earth more powerful. And that is why it creates such a state of awe and humility in the people that are lucky enough to get close to it.
Yeah.
And,
it's funny because Christians, traditional Christians, they tend to look for signs, right?
Yeah.
And
that's why they don't get them.
Well, so, I'm not a traditional Christian, but I am always, on the prowl for symbolism and meaning. And I just read a piece today before we got on the air about a young guy who had gotten into a terrible car accident, five-car accident. This was in Arizona. And they were getting ready to essentially start divesting him of his organs. He was in a coma.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, 11th hour, guy raises two fingers and just comes right out of this coma, right? I mean, they were within really just moments of getting ready to, ship his internals off to people that need them. And bang, there he is. And I've been a couple of weeks ago, I read a story. There was a boy who was in a pool for 30 minutes underwater, and they brought him up, and they resuscitated him, and he lived.
Yeah, there are more tales and stories like that than people are aware of. There is far more profound magic and acts of it taking place on the planet than most people are seeing. There's a matter of bandwidth.
Yeah.
And that's another good thing with having an association with God. God increases your bandwidth. You can see things. You can encounter things. You can move through portals. You can step into other worlds. There are doorways here all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, not all over the place, but they're around. And all of these things exist, but because of the fascination of the material world and the glittery matter, this glittering dust that surrounds us and that people worship, their bandwidth has been narrowed down to these things, and their desire bodies are become impure in their hungers for these things, and so this smoke on a cloud has come up over their vision, and they are unable to see. But there's things like that going on all the time. I mean, if you go to India and you check out some of these spiritual teachers, the real ones, oh, man. I mean, they're capable of, yeah.
Yeah, pure magic. Well, I think that we're seeing more and more of these things come about because, it's my feeling that things are shifting and that there is an incumbent energy that we're merging with right now. And I've been feeling it more and more over the last, 30, 60, 90 days. It's feeling like it's gathering. It's almost like, on the one hand, we have this darkness that is, showing its hand right now. The cards are being laid on the table. I mean, we're seeing it, And on the other hand, there's this other emergent reality that is equally as profound.
That's absolutely so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, people are they're either focused on one or the other, and the fact of the matter is they're both part of the same process. And it's the relationship you develop yourself, where you choose to stand, that determines, like they say, character is fate. What you've made out of yourself determines your destiny, where your values are. And that says that in the Bible very clearly, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where your heart is, there your treasures are also.
One of the things that I talked with you about on the reading is this whole dance between dual and non-dual consciousness.
Right.
I wanted to talk to you about it on the show here today, and it seems like there's the non-dual school, don't do anything, let the whole thing implode, be very Tao about it. Then there's the dual pieces, get out there, protest, make your voice be heard. Where do you weigh in on the dual, non-dual experience?
Well, I was, it's funny because I caught that where you were discussing it in the reading, and I was actually going to email you about it. That specifically, because I wanted to tell you how in agreement I was with what you presented there. But where I stand, it's so incredibly simple with me. It's like, I just keep it at the most basic level. Anything complex is disorderly for me, and anything complex is moving toward deception. It always is.
Yeah.
And so in the case of duality, I live in it. But, it's whether it has an impact on me that is the point, not whether I recognize it, not whether I'm moving through it, but whether it's having an impact on me. For instance, the sun comes up during the day. The moon comes up at night, although they don't actually. The Earth rotates or however it works. And I can stand there and I can be frightened in the dark and can think about all kinds of dark things about the moon and Hecate or whatever, or I can just be, totally devoted to the sun or this kind of. But I choose to see beauty in both of them, And I tend to believe that a lot of what's called evil isn't evil at all. It's just good that hasn't been understood yet. It's something that we haven't understood the proper application or the power that's inherent in it. It's like thunder and lightning. You know, they used to terrify people. They thought it was God screaming and yelling and banging, and probably likely it is. And so they would go put up bowls of fruit on rocks and things to placate it. And, of course, it got uglier than that. They'd go out and cut people's hearts out and offer them up and all the rest of that kind of thing, too, on sacrifice people or all the terrible things they get into in thinking that they have to expiate some kind of thing with this deity that they don't understand. Right. And if you ask me, everything's a science. I'm a metaphysician, is what I consider myself. And I see everything as having a scientific basis. I really believe that it does. Faith, everything. We just don't understand it. It's laws of nature. You mentioned laws of nature, and that implies that we know what the laws of nature are, but we don't. When you say laws of nature, we're talking about a few laws of nature that we have apprehended and turned toward our uses technologically. But there are all kinds of other laws of nature that are staring us right in the face that some people are actually using, although they may be going about it in a quiet way. Mm-hmm. And see, that's another thing. The more that you're led into the company of God, and the more you become a friend of God, and that ideally is the ultimate goal or place to be named a friend of God. There's nothing like that. Well, once you have that, you enter into a certain kind of company, and you accompany God. He takes you places. He shows you things. Mm-hmm. And that's there for anyone. It's there for everyone and anyone who will take the trouble. But as I have said many times, if you want to go and meet your town councilman, that's pretty darn easy. If you want to meet your representative in the House of Representatives, that's not entirely too difficult. If you want to go meet your senator, that can be harder. If you want to meet the President of the United States, that's much more difficult. And to meet the Pope yet, that's probably even more difficult. Yeah. Well, what about to meet God? I mean, God's a lot more exclusive than any of those people are. So don't you think you should have to go through more trouble to impress God with your sincerity? Because God can see everything. He's not deceived, and he will test you. He will test you and test you and test you until by his own measurements and designs he is satisfied that you have come to a point where he can share certain secrets and things with you, that you won't violate them, that you won't prostitute and pervert them. Right. Because some of these things are very, very powerful, and they shake heaven and earth. And so to come into the confidence of God is a very, very high responsibility. And there are, I will tell you, many high people of great wisdom who fell because they overlooked certain cardinal things. Mm-hmm. And very important to keep those things in mind. Yeah. And,
it seems to me like there is a level of maturity, that one has to be able to achieve and handle, because it is a lot of power and a lot of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So you got to be able to show on a consistent basis, really, that you can handle it and ground it. I get that. When you look at your life, Les, and it sounds like you had a pretty intense life. Do you see your life that as where it's led up to this point as a series of initiations into the mysteries that you're talking about now?
And spectacular failures.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I would arrive at this place like this, but I've been through actual initiations of a certain order. I'm a member of a brotherhood. I couldn't really exactly say which one, but there's no question in my mind I am, because of the rituals I went through in the wild, me and invisible entities. And I don't know what much of anything that happened to me means. I mean, I saw golden serpents rise up out of the ground. I saw cats with the 9 in their silhouettes, green cats. I saw a serpent moving through everything, going in and out of the earth. I saw fiery letters written into everything, trees, the grass. They were like hieroglyphs. Right. And they were flaming letters. And I saw those in any number of times, but I don't know what they mean. And I saw a lot of things I didn't know what they mean. And when my Kundalini thing first rose, I had a lot of cities and powers. I was able to do things that were pretty off the charts. and they were taken away from me at a certain point when I integrated back in, and also probably because I wasn't respectful of them. I didn't really quite know what I was doing. I never really have. And so, I just kind of put one foot in front of the other and keep trying to get closer to my Creator, because it appears to me that He doesn't particularly want me to know a lot of things of what's going on. I mean, things flow through me and I can say them, but it doesn't necessarily mean I knew them at the time. I just knew them while I was saying them.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, that sort of feeds into your writing a little bit. You're incredibly prolific. When you sit down and type out a post for Reflections or Smoky Mirrors, what is that process like for you? Do you have to ready yourself? Do you just sit down and say?
I just sit down and start writing.
Yeah.
I write it out about as fast as it takes that I can type. That's it.
That's it.
And then I will go over and because of course there are grammatical and punctuation errors. As anyone who reads my blogs will note that on occasion they will see one here and there. But after a few hours of any given day, I've corrected most of them. And I have some little elves that let me know.
Yeah. Well, as a fellow blogger, I have a few errors in my text as well every now and then.
Yeah.
So yeah. You've got a couple of books out, and you and I have talked. You've got 7 more coming out? Is that right?
Well, I got the one novel came out, and then Spiritual Survival just came out. Amaranth and the people publishing them down in Mexico, that brought that out. Now I'm just finishing up, although I'm taking a little longer than I'd hoped. I have this next novel coming out, which, oh my goodness, I don't know what to think about this, because I say things in this book that I know I have never seen anyone say before. I bring real life things in 9/11, who did it the whole 9 yards, into a fictional setup. So it's kind of odd. When I write, I'm not writing a book really for entertainment. I want it to be entertaining. Of course, I want people to keep reading it, but I write it because I have a motive. I have something I'm trying to get across. I'm either trying to describe the world in a certain way, or I'm trying to describe the forces that operate in the world a certain way and give them character. Like I always refer back to Dostoevsky that way. He wrote a lot of things, but he was a moralist. He tried to bring a certain kind of, and I like to think that that's what I try to do. And so then the novel's coming out, and after that we're going to put out a best of the blogs, and then I guess there's a book of poetry. Visible Origami, Smoky Mirrors, and Reflections in a Petri Dish. I think we were going to take the best 50 posts over the years, because most people haven't read them all, I'm sure. And we're going to put those out. I expect that'll probably all be accomplished toward mid-year next year, something like that, because it'll depend on our finances too. We're on a wing and a prayer, shoestring, but we seem to be coming along. It seems to be doing itself.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. I've had. It feels like for me about a month ago, I kind of turned a corner on the manifestation front, and the universe has been very, very benign. And I wound up selling a car yesterday, and just out of the blue, by selling the car, I've got rent money, and I've got Christmas money, and it's like, but I never have a lot more than that, but it's always enough to get me.
I know what you mean.
To the next.
I just sold my car too the other day.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is very.
And that gave me, I paid for my plane ticket to Mexico, and I'll have a couple €1,000 in my pocket, and I can't imagine that I would, go through that just living simply in Mexico with it. I don't really want anything. I bring everything I need. It's what I would buy food. I actually hope to help some people out with we've got inexpensive lodging there, but there's some people coming down that don't even have the funds, I think, to manage everything. So we're just trying to look collectively at, make this thing possible, everybody getting together and seeing what we can generate among ourselves. Because for me, the strongest drive is community.
Yeah. Yeah,
got to have a community. And that's the one thing that's going to be so necessary as this old world and the old order falls down. People are going to need to be able to rely on each other. And so they're going to need a schematic. They're going to need, a way that this works. And, of course, it's not rocket science, you know. Communities work and flourish and function, you know, when people abide by, you know, the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And where there's a libertarian aspect, you know, with self-reliance, you know, and people not being afraid to work, you know.
Right,
And,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I was in communities all through my life, and I've always been a hippie, but I was an industrious hippie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was a hippie that bathed, and I was surrounded by people who were having sex all over the place, and it never really bothered. I mean, I must say I got probably more than my share out of all that, being a poet and a musician, but I was never into that the way they were, you know. And I just saw people who were so carnal, and they were so into and lazy. A lot of people just damn lazy. They come to these communities where the rest of us would do all the work, and they just feed off of us. Or they would, you know, they had all kinds of rationalizations for the way they were. They were deceptive and deceitful. But they came in the guise of, you know, the rest of us. And then I've been in communities, boy, where we had, you know, where just about everybody was spot on. And that is something else. But I don't really have any sympathy or I have compassion for them, sure, but for people who just won't get it together, do you know what I mean? And just whine all the time, and oh, poor me, and oh, my life, and can you help me and fix my life? You know, Jesus Christ, I give them the answers.
Right.
They won't apply them. You know, I was here in Europe for, God, I don't know, several years, and I don't really know anyone here. I don't really have any friends here. For whatever that reason is, I think it has to do with God. I'm not that unpleasant that everybody runs from me. I just, I haven't cultivated it. I have really kept to myself, and I know a few people. But anyway, people would talk to me, and invariably, you know how people are, they always start to tell you about their problems.
Right.
And so I went, well, okay, what's your problem? They would tell me their problem. And I don't want to pass off here that I'm omniscient or anything, but usually if somebody tells me what the problem is, I know I can see what the answer is, usually.
Right.
And so I would say, well, look, do you realize that if you do this and that and this and that things will very much improve, and that if you consider this and you consider that, then there are some options here, maybe not exercise these, and invariably they would say, oh, yeah, that's a good idea, that'll work, this and that. And then I would run into them, you know, a few months later or whenever I would run into them, and nothing had changed. And it baffled me. For a while, I just could not figure this out. And then I realized they were the problem. Mm-hmm. Until they changed themselves, the problem wasn't going to go away. And that's the thing with everybody on the planet. If you have problems, look at yourself. If you've got problems with things that are messing up with you or anyone in your life or anything else, don't be looking at them. Well, sometimes it is them, but it's you that got you into it anyway somehow. And once you can do that, once you can take all the blame yourself, once you can take the left-hand side of the bargain, once you can say, I'm wrong, and admit it, and be fearlessly honest, when you can do that, well, angels are going to fly to your side.
Yeah.
God's very sincere. His angels are very sincere. They're powerful. They're fearsome. They're not weak, namby-pamby things like you see in some of these books, okay? These are some powerful creatures, and they're not weak at all.
Yeah.
And we're not weak either, unless we choose to be.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Yeah. You've got some interesting videos up on YouTube with the voice of God, Patrick Willis.
Oh, Patrick Willis, he's just great.
Yeah. How did you guys cross
he's
paths?
He's a godsend, man. Well, I don't know how that. I can't quite remember. I think Patrick just started doing them, and it came to my attention, and of course I was impressed. You know, he sounds like God. You know,
he does.
I tell everybody he's this James Earl Jones of Africa.
Yeah.
Although he's white, and James Earl Jones isn't, which is kind of funny. And he's just got that voice. It's unbelievable, and he knows. He never seems to make an error. His syntax, his way of speaking is so elegant. I just consider it such a compliment. You know, it's a compliment to me. Yeah. I'm going to go see him when I come back from my first trip here. We're going to spend some time together. You know, he says I'm never going to leave, but I don't know about that. But it's nice of him to say it.
Well, South Africa is a very interesting place. You know, I mean,
where I'm going to be is the best of it. You know, along the way from Cape Town and down on the coast down there. That's the good part.
That is a good part. It's where the two oceans meet. You know,
yeah, I won't be anywhere near Johannesburg, for instance, which I don't think I want to see.
South Africa is a pretty powerful vortex.
Yeah, and all the wildlife and stuff, you know, and all the scenery and stuff. I mean, I'm so into nature.
Yeah. Have you been to Africa before?
Never have.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'd be totally excited about going. So yeah. Well, that's good news. You know what I want to do, Les? I want to play a piece of your music, and which I uploaded to the show here. And,
okay.
And let's see, it is I think it's Gone Baby, and reminded me
Gone Baby Gone, yeah.
Gone Baby Gone reminded me a little bit of Leonard Cohen. And I really enjoyed this, and there's kind of an interesting cadence and rhythm and a earthiness and a bluesiness. So let's play this, and we'll come back to the other side. We'll talk about the track, and we'll talk more about your music. Here we go. This is our good friend Les Visible, Gone Baby Gone. Good.
I'm in the middle of a rainforest, rain falling down on me. I'm in the middle of a rainforest, too dark to see. Dark as night and warm as blood, snakes are talking about the brotherhood. I hear voices on the wind, they stir the leaves where I've been. I'm in the middle of a nowhere, somewhere is all around. I'm in the middle of a nowhere that I'm likely to be found. Send them south and send them west, lay your cards close to your chest. Dead man famous, it made him dead. He sleeps like a baby in his hide of bed. Like an echo in a canyon, hear me fade away. I'm gone like an echo in a canyon, gone like yesterday. They seen them here, they seen them there, but they can't find him anywhere. Soft as light through falling snow, the dream police never saw him go. Fame and fortune went missing, they had the wrong address. The crime was love in private, with nothing to confess. Take it light or let it go. What did it mean? Well, I don't know. The dancing wind and the smiling moon, they say so long, I'll see you soon. I'm in the middle of a rainforest, rain falling down on me. I'm in the middle of a rainforest, dark to see. Dark as night and warm as blood, snakes are talking about the brotherhood. I hear voices on the wind, they stir the leaves of where I've been. I'm in the middle of a rainforest, rain falling down on me. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm in the middle of a rainforest. Let's too dark to see. I'm in the middle of a rainforest. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it was Gone Baby Gone. That was Gone Baby Gone and Gone Baby Gone again. That's from our guest, Less Visible, and we're talking with him right now. When you hear a piece of music that you've done like that, and you hear it again after the fact, what goes through your mind after you hear a song just like that right now? What was going through your head?
Oh, I was thinking about the associations. Like snakes are talking about the brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because that's like the cobra heads over the heads of the deities in India.
Yeah.
That is a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Hoods of the snakes, and warm as blood, the exoticness of the hot jungle, the passion, that kind of thing. And the dream police not seeing them go. I like that.
Yeah, that was a good line. I also like the one about fame and fortune.
Went missing. They got the wrong address. Well, fame and fortune, they're not what they cracked up to be, are they?
Yeah,
that's one place I consider myself really lucky, man, because, I had fame and fortune came my way a number of times, and I met a number of famous people, and I had opportunities, but I could see what was there, and I said, and I wanted it too, but I could see. I said, I will mess this up. I will mess this up, and I will regret it. So I would literally leave town. And I did that a number of times, and I knew eventually it would find me on some level when I was able to handle it. And these days I can handle it better, but I still am a very private person. I don't really care that much about, getting out there and being on stages and things. I just doesn't do anything for me. Small informal groups and things like that, those are fine. But the whole show business thing, it's like having a hairnet of mosquitoes and flies around you all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. People like Tom Cruise and the rest of these people, you got people all the time, you know what I mean? And they're talking about you, and they're chasing you down. The very people you don't want to talk to, okay? All the people who have become your fans are people that you don't want anything to do with. And that's another thing. I mean, you don't want the fans or the supporters or the people, your equals, as is the case anyway. You don't want them to not be people much like yourself,
Right.
Because, it's not that even these other people are bad or anything, but they're on a different ray. They represent different values and different things, and that can become a real burden for some people. To have to go out there and perform like with a stand-up comic. I did stand-up comedy for a while, but, man, that's the pits.
Yeah.
I mean, people are so cynical and so dark. And the people that come to these things, they just want to laugh at misfortunes and different things and, nasty things said about people.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's funny, the whole celebrity thing. I remember one time I was hanging out in San Francisco, and I was trying to do a story on Perry Farrell, who was the lead singer, obviously, of Jane's Addiction. And he was in a DJ phase. He was doing a lot of DJing. And I was at it was right around this time of year, actually, and it was a fundraiser for a nonprofit in San Francisco. And I was doing journalism for pay at that time. I was actually paying pretty well. And I'm trying to track him down at this event. And he was surrounded by hordes of young Jewish people, and Perry was actually studying to be a rabbi at this time. And there was this super hip, West Coast older rabbi that was his mentor. And it was kind of a weird scene because, he had about 20 people around him, and they all wanted to get into the nonprofit, benefit for free. It was kind of a weird scene. And so I'm trying to track him down, and I'm trying to get through his bodyguards and stuff, and I'm having no success. So I'm at the DJ coffin, and I'm hanging with my buddy, this guy Lycan. He's playing this old school ska and stuff. We're just talking. And all of a sudden, Perry's he's gonna DJ, and they were gonna put him on the main stage. but he didn't want to be there. And he saw Lycan's little coffin. Perry's a Pisces, so he wanted to be hidden, in the back somewhere. He didn't want to be really on stage. So he wanted to, if he could use his DJ coffin and his turntables. And so Lycan said yes. And so now all of a sudden I'm standing next to Perry Farrell, the guy that I've been trying to get to all night, right? And I'm talking to him, and he's doing his DJ set, and I'm there behind the turntables the whole time while he's DJing. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. I want to kind of take this in. And this is really trippy. There was this one guy who showed up, and he looked exactly dress-wise, hair length-wise, clothing-wise. He looked exactly like how Perry Farrell would have looked in, say, 1991. And he stood right across me. And Perry Farrell looks nothing like this now. He's got short hair. At that time, he had to pee in a cup each week because he drug tested for some kid that he had with another woman. I mean, it was really a trip, right? And so here he is, he's DJing, and here's this guy who's like a ghost from his past, standing across from him the whole night. I could only imagine how unnerving that would be if somebody dressed like me, 6 years ago, and there they are. I mean, that would have to be at least one burden of fame.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's also the fact of going in and out of fashion too. I mean, think about these people. They get so high and they're so attractive, and suddenly it's gone because that lamplight that's turned off and on. And astrology will show that happening to people, and all of a sudden they can't get it back, or they become famous like your Lindsay Lohan types and the rest of them, and they make they butcher their lives. And I knew a lot of people who were very successful in rock music, and I would be around them, and they'd disappear in the bathroom for 5-6 hours at a time shooting cocaine. And I didn't get a chance to talk to them a lot of the times, and one friend of mine, he hung himself when Richard Manuel, when his girlfriend ran off with Stevie Winwood. And I don't know if he really intended to hang himself. I think he was messed up on coke, and he probably went and tried and went to change his mind, but he managed to do it. And I tell you, that's the rule, not the exception. The exception of the people I've seen that are balanced and together and fun to be around, they're few and far between. Yeah. The rest of them have big problems, and people see celebrities only when they're on stage. They're very attractive then. They know how to smile. They're performers. They know what they're doing. But then you meet them in person, and they have these terrible personality disorders, or they make incredible demands on people. They treat the people around them like shit. Mariah Carey comes to mind for that. Yeah. But there are any number of these people, who are just, their arrogance and egotism has gone. Just, it's like they swallow the sun and moon, the way Lao Tzu says it. And, I just thought, and that could be any of us. Share there, but for fortune go I. I could be just like those people had I not been blessed by the misfortunes that came to me. Had I not been blessed by these misfortunes and this hard road I've had to walk, it has actually turned out to be the very best thing. I mean, I had a brutal father who pummeled me every single day. He did things to me that were nothing sexual, thank God, but I guess that was probably sexual too. And I mean, he was an incredibly violent man, and I had no childhood as a result. And I managed to get away from him. And then when I got out into the world and I met other people, almost everybody I met had fantastic parents. Huh. And I thought, well, that's great. How great that must have been to have that. But they were all weak. There were many of them. They had just jellyfish spines, as I call it, and they hadn't had anything to test them and make them strong. It's like when kids are growing up. I played sports all my life. I mean, it was from the time I was up in the morning till I went to bed at night. If I went to anything else, I was on a baseball field or playing football or something, and nonstop. And that makes you strong. It builds your bones and things at the time when you're growing. Yeah. And a lot of the kids now, they get all these excuses from gym and everything else. Yeah. And so they grow up without that being there. And then it becomes incredibly hard to get that. Yeah. My father was he was pretty tortured, and I'm assuming your father was pretty tortured too. Sure. Yeah. And
my old man was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, he wasn't always Mr. Hyde. You know, he was, there were times when he was really cool and very there for me, but there were other times where he would get completely unhinged.
Yeah.
And I, so I understand that. I understand what it's like to go through that. And I think in a weird way, and maybe you could speak to this, that these periods, these again, like initiations, like for me, I feel like I can handle a lot more than other people because of what I went through.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming you're in the same space.
Well, God came to me recently and said, and this was when I was in Italy, I went through some incredibly powerful things down there. I mean, at one point I was in a supernatural state for 6 weeks. I had a Kundalini experience where I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, and I was working hard every day, and I was never tired. I mean, all kinds of things like were going on. I had flying saucers. It was ordinary, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, they were like, oh man, I couldn't even begin. The Devic Kingdom was coming around. There was all this stuff going on. And God came to me, and he was saying these things to me all through the day when I was working. He was doing the work, by the way. I wasn't doing it, which is another thing I was noticing at the time. That's why I wasn't really tired of anything. He was just there doing it all. And he said, you have to rely on me utterly. Rely on me utterly. Rely on me over and over and over. And then he said, I did all that to you. He said, that wasn't your father, that was me. He says, I did that. He says, you understand, don't you? And I said, oh, yeah, I do. He said, you're not even angry, are you? I said, no. I said, I can hardly even remember it. But the way he was explaining it to me, I was not in a position to have any objections, whatsoever. But he was telling me, because he was saying that was going to stop now, that it was, that the time had come when I wasn't going to have to go through these things anymore, that there were still going to be, some, trials and tests here and there, necessary things that were, for further initiations possibly, but that the hard part of things was over for me now. That, in fact, it was going to get so good I wouldn't even be able to stand it. I wouldn't believe it. And, I mean, it goes on and on like that in such positive fashion sometimes to me that it really is hard to do, except because I read for years and years that the voice of God is always a chiding voice. It's always telling you about your shortcomings. It's a still small voice that points out your errors and your flaws and things. But as I remember, that did happen for decades, So now it's come around to where it's just really very nice, and he's very, very generous to me and says just all kinds of nice things to me, He tells me he's responsible for the way everybody responds to me, and he explains it to me. He says, do you think that would be happen? Does that happen to anyone else? He says, look at the comments, look at this, look at that. He says, that's me. And I said, yeah, I do. He says, and I want it like that. He says, and then he went on and on telling me about different things he'd make happen and had made happen, and they happen. And then they happen. Mm-hmm. So I have to think, well, then maybe he's telling me the truth about this other stuff, and then it is scary.
Yeah. How do we deal with people like the Dick Cheneys, the Donald Rumsfelds, the Nicholas Sarkozys?
Those guys.
Yeah, if everything is God, how do we deal with that issue?
I deal with it as if it's theater, okay? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Okay, that comes to mind, although, some of these people are pretty unforgivable, but, not as far as God's compassion is so far beyond anything I could ever imagine that I can only imagine. And I look at them as people engaged in theater. This whole world is a movie set, and a movie is going on, and we are all playing our parts. Somebody's got to be Jack the Ripper. Somebody's Jesse James. You can only hope and pray that you don't get some of the roles. But, everybody goes to those roles. They fly toward them, and there's a lesson inherent in them. And it's a long, long road, all this reincarnation stuff. Some people have millions of lives, And there are people, the Buddha, there's a number of stories about the Buddha, encountering people, who had murdered a lot of people and different things. And I think it was him that said, only pursue an offender to show him the way. And just that we have to be bigger than they are. We have to be greater than they are. And we have to be forgiving and understanding. And I mean, I rail at these people, and I have what I have to say because I believe that's part of my job to say it. But in my heart, I don't want to get too too into the Jean Valjean role about anything. I don't want to play Les Miserables. I want to be compassionate and forgiving, and I recognize these people are just absolutely flat out deluded. Some of them are psychopaths like Rumsfeld. I saw a new soul one day. I was very high on some ketamine, and I was traveling around in the upper astral, and I went around to a number of different people, and I was able to experience them. And the scariest one was Rumsfeld. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
There was nothing there.
Wow.
I mean, with Cheney, there was somebody there. He was all messed up, but he was there. But Rumsfeld, oh my goodness, and Obama, oh my God. Oh, he's much darker than he appears. He's done some very bad shit, that guy. At least that's what I was being told at the time when I was there. But and I don't know, because there's always a chance that some of the things that I experience are hallucinations. And, goes without saying. But I just have to go with the track record overall, and that is that usually things I encounter and run into, they're just about 99% accurate, as they prove out to be later. So.
Right. When you were cruising around the astral, checking out some of these personalities, was there anybody that surprised you and said, you know what, this person isn't as bad as I thought?
Yeah. And, I can't think of who that is right now. There were some things like that. God, just as you were saying that, my mind was made blank. So for whatever the reason that is, it's completely blank now.
Right.
And I'd have to feel around. It certainly wasn't Tony Blair. And
I wouldn't be thinking it would be Tony.
Nasty customer, that guy. And George W. Bush, he is. And his father, oh my God, that whole lineage, that whole family, oh my God. Yeah. Deeply immersed in the 9/11 thing, Marvin Bush, every single one of them, up to their necks in this horrible stuff. Oh, absolute, total Satanists, those people.
Well, it's really interesting. Today you were talking about Jerry Sandusky on your blog, and Petri Dish, and so I've been following the Sandusky stuff astrologically, but also from a institutional perspective, and now you're seeing the dominoes begin to fall. There was a Coach Fine, I think it's Herb Fine, up in Syracuse, a basketball coach, longtime assistant for Jim Boeheim. Same thing, child molestation. Now they've actually indicted the head of the AAU, which is the Amateur Athletic Union.
Holy shit! Yeah.
Same thing, child molestation. One of the top sports writers for I think it's the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Oh yeah, that's Lord Apocalypse. That's all coming out now. Yet God tells me, boy, he has just begun to do that. He says, I am going to rip the covers off these people. He says, I'm going to show up right in the middle of them and expose them. I'm going to show up right in the middle of them doing it, and I'm going to nail them at it. Oh, he was fierce when he was talking about that. Well, that went on all night one night.
What was interesting is that the head of one of the heads of the NCAA is Marvin Bush. Marvin Bush.
Oh.
So they've even got their greasy fingerprints on college athletics, which now looks to me like it is really the covers are coming back on this problem with child abuse and child molestation in sports.
Oh, it's all over the place. Look, did you see one article that I linked to a few weeks ago? I don't know if you did, but this was going on in California, that all these people were having their children taken away from them, given to child molesting parents, given to abusive parents. They had a list of examples. I was reading on the page. There was like 50, 60, 70 of them, of the most gruesome tales that you could believe, and the courts were doing this routinely.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. That would surprise me. And as a parent, it's a real, sense
of epidemic.
Yeah.
It's epidemic, and it's satanic, and there's many lodges of these things, and it's part of their initiatory rites. You see, this is a time of darkness. This is a time of great material darkness, and as a result, these things flourish. And they flourish in the greater portion of humanity because it is the greater portion in greater times of darkness, and the lesser portion. Well, what people don't get is that the light concentrates during these times. So, you don't lose out entirely. You just have to go where the light's concentrating.
Right. And we're coming out of the Kali Yuga, so a lot of this stuff is going to come to the surface.
Oh yeah.
And it's about, it's about time, really. The 3,000 years at the very least of
well, God wears a different watch than we do. So, you're like me, I'm sure, thinking, shouldn't something have happened already?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be moving a little more rapidly? But he's very compassionate and very patient. And I always have to be reminded of that now when he tells me, it's coming any time now. This is going to happen really soon, something for me usually. And it doesn't. But then it'll happen, weeks later or something. I realize now he wears a different watch.
Yeah. What about some interesting metaphysical sojourns? Have you ever experienced alternate timelines and things of that nature when you're out there doing your astral traveling and journeying?
Yeah, I've experienced just about. I couldn't begin to tell you. When I take K now, I will sit down, and there's no telling where I might go or who I might meet. The first time that I took it, Paramahansa Yogananda showed up, and I sat and had a chat with him for about 10 minutes. That blew my mind, and I said, oh, my God, I've got to have more of this. And I have experiences on this that are just off the charts, but it doesn't happen to other people. Because I have turned some other people onto it, and they don't have the same experiences, although I'm sure there are people who do. But I just, excuse me, I don't know them.
Right.
But I don't take this very often. I get it 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to get my hands on for some reason, and it's as common as dirt. Doesn't make sense. And
so when you say K, you're talking about ketamine, is what you're referring to. Right.
John Lilly took it for decades, and it had a lot to do with his work with the dolphins and everything like that.
Yeah.
It was very much connected. Anyway, also during the earlier period of my life in the Kundalini, I used to be able to dance through dimensions. It would be like I could pass through a portal and then come around and go through something else, and the entire state of my being was, completely more rarefied than it had been when I turned around that corner. Mm-hmm. And, oh, my God, voices booming out of the air was commonplace. And things with nature, the winds, and big cobras coming up out of the sand and doing dances and stuff, a lot of that kind of thing.
Right.
And, of course, going way back into the caverns of my subconscious. As you know, everything's back there, and that's a reservoir for sunken treasure chests.
Right.
And there's a lot of things buried in us that we just do not know about, I want to tell you. Just about everything's in there. But if you know how to fish for it, you have to be able to know how to go in there and pull these things out. That's what I use the tarot for. Mm-hmm. See, the tarot, those the 24 major arcana, they're archetypes. They are eternal, enduring realities that exist in every human being to some degree or the other. Mm-hmm. But when you meditate upon them, they begin to vibrate in your consciousness. And for some of us who did it for quite a long time, I worked with it for many years. And as it vibrates in there, you are consuming it. You are digesting it. Your mind is. Yeah. And it's going back to the subconscious where it becomes digested, and it starts to turn into things that come back up to the surface again. And, that worked wonders for me. I don't know why people use them for telling fortunes. I swear to God, here you have something that changes your fortune.
Right.
It can literally alter your fortune. Why would you want to sit down and read about it?
Right.
About from somebody who usually does not know what they're doing anyway. So.
What deck do you use?
The case deck. I studied with the builders of the Adytum for many years. Yeah, so that's like the Rider-Waite deck.
Yeah, BOTA.
Pretty much the same, except that the Emperor is a little different. And there's a couple of other changes. The Sun.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I was a pretty voracious tarot reader for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And I stopped a few years back and had concentrated mostly on astrology, and I was actually drafted to do tarot readings at a holiday party last week. And I got to tell you, it was a pretty profound experience, pretty magical. And I hadn't touched the cards intensely for about a year. And my relationship with the cards was very different this time around, and was pretty profound actually. So I'll second you.
Some of us have a relationship with them, and they'll speak to us, and they can speak to other people. I mean, they're a sounding board. They definitely are something that will draw up realities. And if you're resonating with the person you're reading for, see, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you have so what I call a telepathic resonance, you're going to be able to say things then. You will be able to, because they are feeding into you and you're feeding into them. That's what I try to do with my blogs. I feed in and out of the minds of the readers. And
yeah, that's actually a really interesting point you bring up, in that when you sit down and write, or when I sit down and write, or anybody that has kind of a public forum, especially one if they're tied in or working with a group of people or energies. I mean, it's a two-way street, right? I mean,
certainly is.
Yeah.
We should never forget that either. I mean, that's what I try to remind myself that, I'm nothing without the people that, gratefully, appreciate what I can do. I don't think it's much, but I mean, I'm just so grateful for that,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure folks out there, myself included, are grateful for what you're doing as well. What can you give people? We've only got about 5 minutes left. If you wanted to give people something to hang their hats on, something that would be hopeful or faithful or magical as we head into the Christmas Eve and Christmas and the end of the Gregorian calendar for this year, beginning of 2012, what could you give people?
Well, I would point out that God is real, and that is a fundamental thing to get your head around. Not speculate that God's real, not intellectually appreciate it, but viscerally apprehend that God is a living, breathing consciousness and resident within you. Go through your life as if you're God. Do everything you're doing as if God were doing it. When you eat as if God were doing it. And when you're eating, digest that food and let that food build God's body into you. When you go to the bathroom as God. I'm not kidding. When you lay down to bed each night, have a conversation. See, most people give up because they'll try it for a few weeks or a month, and they didn't get the results they wanted, so they stopped, and they proved God's point. That's why God didn't show up. Now, if a person is relentless, they are going to succeed. They will be having that conversation. I can guarantee it. I know because I do it. So I suggest that, because there's only one dynamic in life that has any importance, and that is your relationship with the Creator, with the divine. Forget religion, forget all that other crap and all the rest of it. There's a living, breathing presence that animates you, and you are separate from it to some degree. You have to resonate with it, come more and more into its company, which is why I always ask for the presence. I ask for a greater degree of the presence, a longer expression of the presence than I'm already getting, because I realized then I was getting the presence, and God said, well, you get the presence. Why do you keep asking me? And I went, right, I was so like that. But anyway, yeah, that's what I would say, because I can't see anything else as important. I can't think of anything to tell people to do that would come anywhere close to this. I just think they shouldn't make it boring for themselves, because a lot of people do that. They'll repeat some chant over and over and over again, and it'll just become something they're not really kind of into it. They're just doing it and doing it and doing it, hoping they're going to get some results. Or they're praying, and they're praying all the time, but they're praying without actually believing. They're praying without the passion. You have to approach God as a lover. Mm-hmm. Not as some school or authority figure. God has to be your lover, and then you can use terms of endearment, just as if you were talking to your girlfriend or your boyfriend. You have to get even sexual with God. In the sense that the desire has to be really great, because desire and love, God has no defense against that. He has to come. He has no defense. He's a slave to you in this way. And once you recognize this, and you've just flat out decided that you are going to accomplish this, well then, like the Bhagavad Gita says, and I never tire of saying, success is speedy for the energetic. I think that's about it. I could elaborate more, but I think that kind of
I think it's a great gift. That's an absolutely great gift. Speaking of speedy, the hour and 20 minutes that we have allotted to us has absolutely flown by, and we've reached the end of our connection here in this time-space continuum. There's my voice that reminds me of that. So, Les, I want to thank you for hanging in there and being patient and
sure.
get through the technical glitches at the beginning of the show.
My pleasure, and my thanks to all of your kind readers who dropped by to give their attention to our discussion today. Yeah.
So, when you get back from your journey and you get settled again, and I'd love to have you back on and catch up with you on your travels and all that good stuff, if that's cool with you.
Well, maybe we can do something toward the end of my stay in Mexico while I'm there, because I'm going to have my netbook and everything. It'll have all that on it.
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's get you back on the show while you're in Mexico. We'll catch up and we'll get a bird's eye view from the land of the serpent and the eagle.
Yeah, because I think that might be nice. It would be nice, a little more exotic and such,
All right. I'm down with that. I'm totally down.
My brother. My love all around, and God bless and keep you.
Thank you, Les. God bless you, and safe travels, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
All right, that's it. We've reached the end of the show. Thank you, Les Visible. All right, that's it. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible, and go to God. Go to God. That's what Tim Tebow would say. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Solstice. I love you all. I'll see you in a week. Take good care. Bye-bye.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.